Oh, you're live. Okay, so let's get Cooter running. Cooter? Why'd I say Cooter?
Cooter.
Let's get Craig running.
Wait, can we call it Cooter?
We can do whatever we want. We run this
All right.
motherfucker.
Only if it says now recording.
Yeah. Come on in here, Cooter. Have a seat.
You know what? Name a podcast already. Name a podcast already. Yeah?
Come on in here, Cooter.
Yeah.
Oh God.
God, I forget how to do that. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's do a 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. All my stupid little clicks. I don't even know if my mute button works. Nope, nothing. I got no mute button until I set that up.
What happened? I must have missed something.
Oh, God, I was...
Stop. Start the podcast, then we'll talk about this, because it is good.
Okay.
Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 61. 61. I'm Bill.
I'm Eric.
I'm Majid.
And Bill didn't get the Mac I told him to buy.
Oh, yeah, Bill's not going to get the Mac you told him to buy.
Come on, it's only $4.99, man. It's gonna be on a Black Friday sale. It'll be like
That's not bad.
$4.49.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Mac Mini.
That's what you want to do.
I don't trust anything
Did
I
you tell
buy
him?
on a Black Friday sale.
Did you tell him to get
Not-
a Mac Mini?
Yeah, well, yeah. Mac
Yeah.
Minis are pretty awesome for being as cheap as they are.
I'll tell you what I
And,
did.
I had a-
As long as you don't upgrade them.
smaller.
No,
than
I had a
Smaller.
period where I had them 2 or 3 back to back as my little like home server kind of like desktop that I would use every now and then for certain things. I've never been a huge Mac OS fan, so it was. But as a little server, yeah, beautiful because
as a
they're so
server.
tiny. Yeah. Oh no, they're perfect for that. I mean, depending on what you want to do with them, because obviously it has to run on Mac. Unless you were gonna, that was still the Intel days. So I mean, I guess you could have installed Linux on it.
I mean,
But-
you still probably can. if
Anyway,
you try, but-
I had a question.
That would
before we-
actually be okay. If I could install Linux on one of the Intel Macs or something like that, that would totally
Yeah.
be fine for a server. I couldn't imagine running server workloads on a Mac though. They're
on
just
those
not meant for
minis. I mean, even when they were Intels, they still had really great heat dissipation. Yeah, they were the thermals on those were solid, and yeah, I mean they wouldn't throttle. Great performance, great. They had tons of ports for what they were. You
Yeah.
know, and
I mean,
yeah.
you've now started a rabbit hole where I'm now going to be scouring eBay to see how much an Intel Mac Mini would
Not going to
cost.
happen.
Yeah, get the latest Intel Mac Mini, put Linux on it, but also get one of the M series Mac Minis and then actually use it for a little bit and see what you think.
So
No,
before,
I'm all right.
before we
Come
started,
on.
recording, I had asked Bill because he's having some technical difficulties right now.
Well,
Look,
I
he's
was.
still untwining his
He is.
headphones.
I am
He's
totally
furiously-
unprepared.
Look at this. He took the headphones out of his pocket and they're all jumbled up. You know how they are. And then
Well-
you gotta
Yeah.
spend the 6 minutes.
You can get away with using your speakers with Discord because it does a pretty good job of cutting out
Yeah, it
the
does.
echo and things like that. But as we found out on Mintcast, it doesn't always work reliably.
Well, no, it's because you're old and you turn your speakers up too loud.
Well, I've got one of those 4.1 surround systems on this and everything, so it's
Oh,
It can be
so
loud and
Eric's
stupid.
farts come through. And rumbles
I
the
can hear
desk,
you all
man.
think-
Clarity. Oh yeah, fidelity, baby,
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's right.
It's-
That 0.1 is worth it.
Yeah. So yeah, go on then. Eric, you had a question for Bill.
Well, I mean, you guys are teasing him about having computer issues, and I
I'm
said
not
I must.
teasing him. I'm serious.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
Leo
Leo's doing the proper bullying and harassment.
He is. It's
I'm
Yeah,
on it
it's,
today.
it's leaving scars.
That's what you
But
pay me for.
but anyway, Bill's apparently done something to his main setup, and I'm trying to figure out what.
well, if
I
anybody
think he's
saw,
trying to figure out what as well.
yeah, I don't know what it was. It was okay. So anybody that watched Mintcast last week would know that I wasn't on the show because I would go in. Well, for those who don't know, we use Discord to make the show because I can't convince these guys to use anything better. And
There isn't. Just for the
Discord
record.
is good, but okay.
um,
And if I remember correctly, that was Leo's idea, and we used to do Video Ninja and Audacity recordings, and that worked fantastically, didn't
Oh,
it?
that definitely wasn't my
it
idea.
didn't. Well, the thing about using Audacity is, and I think I've got what the problem. When you're recording in Audacity, the timeline, it like shrinks and expands as you're recording. So you'll line everything up in the beginning, and then about halfway through the show, especially with a 3-hour show like Midcast, it drifts. The timing on each individual person drifts a little bit, like space-time expands and retracts for everybody at different rates. It's maddening. So you got to literally go through.
Here's what it is. It's because different people are on different latitudes on the world, and the world.
That's
spins
absolutely
at a
got to be what
different
it is.
pace.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Audacity is picking up on that because it's such a good software that. Oh,
What
by the way,
we
only
should have
on
done
Linux.
was compensate
So
by
maybe-
finding a tall building, and whoever is like on a high latitude, go to a tall building. That way, you're compensating for your low latitude or your low gravity, or you know what I'm trying to say. And but no, we just stopped doing that.
So I've got it. I actually have it because I have to deal with this problem every couple of weeks, right? So, all jokes aside, the latitude thing, I don't think it is. It's definitely a Linux thing. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's the Linux kernel or if it's just Audacity itself, or maybe just Pulse or whatever. We're Pipewire now, but it seems like Linux audio is recorded at. So I don't know what they are, but okay. So when you're in like an audio or a video editor or whatever, it shows you minutes and seconds, and then there's like dot, and it goes up to 29. So at 30, it'll carry over. Whatever the 30 is over there, 3 of those every 15 minutes. Yeah, 3 of those every 3 ticks, whatever that is, tiny ticks, every 15 minutes. And if you just bump things up every 15 minutes, just bump it up, it'll stay. It'll stay. Or at least the audio that I get.
Well, what I got to thinking about was, because it seemed like the people with the best computers were holding time, and the people that hadn't done anything to their computers were keeping time better than the people that had added a lot of different hardware to them. Like in my case, I've added hardware to mine. So that got me to thinking, okay, what is it? Okay, first off, what mechanism does a computer use to actually be able to discern one unit of time to the next? And I got to thinking, well, it's got to be from the electricity, right? It's got to be counting the pulses in electricity.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Well, I got to thinking, I had put a cheap power supply in this thing, and I wondered if maybe the frequency of the current was not stable enough for the processor to be able to discern time.
But then isn't there like a CMOS battery in most of these things?
Yeah, I don't
kind
think
of-
that's used. I think that's just used to keep the BIOS information, the unit, while the time.
Not all machines will use the actual hardware time as system time. Not all, but some do.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was an interesting theory, but the more I played with it, the more I just thought, you know what, this is just not even worth it anymore.
Did you? Here's my question to you, Bill. Did you install Windows on this rig just to test?
That would have been a great idea.
Oh, it still is.
I mean, up until last week, I had a window. Well, no. At the time we were doing the show and using Audacity, I had nuked the Windows partition, and I was just using Mint, and I really didn't feel like going through the arcane process of installing in Windows just to test.
Over time, I had tested this issue on both Windows and Mac, and it doesn't happen there. It happens in Linux only.
I thought.
I mean, I'm not surprised that it is, because the other thing is that Linux isn't one thing, is it? I mean, there's all these different distros. There's all these. I mean, the point I'm trying to say is that if It's like why apps, and I have to grudgingly admit this, even though I don't like it. Why do apps generally on mobile work better on iPhone than they do on Android? It's because there's only a certain number of SKUs of iPhone that you have to code your app for. But when it comes to Android, there's like a bajillion different devices with different hardware and whatever. And so I kind of think of that. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but I mean, it just feels conceptually just
absolutely
seem
true.
right to me that if you've got same thing with computers, you've got a standard Mac OS, Windows operating system, then any apps which interact with that, and then the hardware, etc. There's less for them to do when you compare it to, say, Linux, which has to make everything as broad as possible because it's open source and it's put on a variety of different hardware, and then each of those things are slightly different. Their distros are slightly different. Some are using this service, some are using that, some are using Pipewire, some are using Pulse Audio, some are using Wayland, some are using X11. Do you see what I mean? There's just so much that I'm not surprised. I don't like it, but I'm not surprised that you can have these kind of random issues with certain apps. What annoys me is when you get random issues specifically on Windows, because then I'm kind of like, you've only got one operating system. There's a certain number of hardware things. Why is we must have all had it, just randomness, like what you'll be copying a file onto a USB drive and it'll be like suddenly it will start slowing down and you're like, why the hell is this thing slowing down? I have no idea
I got
why.
an answer for you on that one though.
No, but it's like that only ever seems to happen on Windows. It never happens when I'm using any other operating system, whether it's Linux, whether it's Android. I'm trying to remember whether they did it on Mac as well,
because they were overestimating it in the beginning anyway when you first started copying that file, and then it just kind of caught up with itself.
Listen, I'm here to take a shit on Microsoft any day, but that's not it. It's the controller that you have in there. There's essentially cache, and the cache has run out. So now you're actually writing at disk speed instead of caching and getting the benefit of that speed there. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Windows sucks, but not for that reason.
So why so how does it work on Linux then? It doesn't do it the same way? It doesn't cache it?
Should, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
No, it does. It's a hardware level thing. I mean, that's the disk itself has a certain amount of cache built in, and the way it's laying out the data, there's a certain amount that it can hold and write quickly, and then the rest of it has to do real time, and it slows way down. So
like it would be way cool if the whole disk was cache. Like if the whole disk was that type of memory. Oh man, so fast all the time.
You just wouldn't need it though. It would be so expensive for what you.
But I've never had that problem on Linux. Genuinely, I'm not.
Let's do ourselves a science experiment. Get one disk and let's do it on all three OSs. And if that's true, then you've got yourself a conundrum.
I've had a problem though where I'd be copying a file and then it would say it's done, and then when I'd go to hit the button to eject the drive,
that's like
that's
OS level caching. Yeah, that's OS level caching, right? So the file has been moved into memory at the very least, and hasn't been moved to the actual disk itself for, again, the same kind of reason, right? Like they want it all to be fast, and this is why it's so imperative on both Linux and Mac, because they both do this, to eject your drive. Windows tends to prioritize writing directly to the disk, so unless you're stressing the system, Windows will never do that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, okay. I would have.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
To get back to your question, what I had happen last week was out of nowhere for no reason, because I had made no strange changes to this machine whatsoever. Discord was doing this thing where as long as I was the only one in a voice channel, meaning one of these channels like we're using here to capture and make the show with video, as long as I was the only one in there, nothing bad would happen. The minute somebody else would come in and activate their camera, my whole system would lock up, which I have no explanation for, because it was happening with the Flatpak version of Discord, and it was happening with the Deb version of Discord. Exactly.
Okay, because that was my first question.
Yeah. Like a hardware call, and it was just like
it had to be. Yeah, it was something.
Yeah.
Weird. Leo was asking if I tried to update the kernel, and I've always ran the most up-to-date kernel. I've just been in a habit of doing that. And actually, the last couple times I've installed Mint, it's just given me the most up-to-date kernel that it had available. I don't know if that's just how they do it now or what, but it was updated, and I rolled it back to the last LTS kernel. That did nothing. I tried uninstalling, clearing all of the configs, reinstalling Discord. That did nothing. There was nothing in the logs. It's just like it wasn't happening. So I nuked and paved.
Something in your webcam, maybe?
I've got 2 webcams right here, and it was doing it with both of them. I've got a Brio and a C920, and
So a nuke and pave fixed it? I mean, obviously you're here.
yeah. That's,
Okay, so do you know what the answer is then, Bill?
let's have it.
Stop fucking with it.
Well, I will now once I get it set up again. You watch though. What I need to do is just set the things up that I use, which I mean, I don't do anything really out of the ordinary with my Mint setup. I move a couple things around from the default location.
So why do you always go for the most recent kernel then? If you're using Mint to be
Well,
on a production machine, why not just stick with an LTS kernel?
So it is an LTS kernel. It's just the latest, because you got the choice between at least a couple. I got in the habit of it because when I first bought this machine, I had to have an updated kernel just to get some things working, because this machine was a little too new for the default kernel at the time. That was in 2021, I think, when I got this. So I just got into the habit of just going with the latest one. But like I said, it's been choosing the latest one for me the last couple of times that I've nuked and paved.
Well, what specs is that machine?
This is I'll tell you. It's a Ryzen 7. Where's it at? Ryzen 7 5700G, 16 cores at 3.8 gigahertz. I've got a Radeon Pro WX 7100 GPU in it, and 32 gigs of RAM.
Do you game on that box?
No.
Okay, do you have the AMD Pro driver on that box?
No.
Oh my God, so you're not even taking advantage of the whole entire reason that video card exists.
Well, I got it for a really good price because I had a Fire Pro in here, just because these better Radeon cards handle VA API a lot better, which you're kind of stuck with if you're using the open source driver for video acceleration.
Right, but you don't have to use the open source driver. You're in a position where you actually want...
Well, we talked about this last show. I could not get the Pro driver to install.
Oh, okay.
On Mint using the 2404 version that is on AMD's website. I could not get that to work. I didn't try the 2204, and I think they've got a 2004. And I've noticed things when you go back an iteration, sometimes they work, but it was hardly worth it to me to go screwing around anymore, so I just kept using VA API. Yeah, I know with the proprietary driver you get better use of things. I don't understand why we have to jump through those hoops to get that proprietary driver for AMD.
Yeah, they don't upstream it, which is really, really annoying. But I don't know. I really couldn't tell you, because when you do that driver on like a gaming type card, you still get the same benefits, less so because it's not the type of card that you would really, really want that for. But you lose a lot of the ability to game. So maybe it's two separate branches that do totally different things. I don't know why you wouldn't unify them, but
I noticed I tried gaming. I do have a Steam account that I'll just play with, and I've really only got an academic interest in gaming just to see how well it's doing on Linux. And I was getting the frame rates I was getting with the Pro driver, because I did get it to work a couple years ago, but I can't remember why I went back to the open source driver. There was something, it was giving me better gaming performance, but everything else was just not on par, or making these shows and stuff like that was not working as well for whatever reason. And I wish I could remember what that was. I should have wrote something down. I think I was expecting to be able to use the AMF driver or the AMF encoder, and I still didn't have use of that, which
Yeah.
the same card on Windows, you get a built-in H.264 and HEVC encoder that OBS Studio can use.
Yeah.
It
Like the
it would be
VCE
an
or something.
it would be an interesting experiment actually to see how well that works with Linux gaming now, because
Yeah.
things have gone forward so much. I mean, it's been in the news this week, hasn't it? Steam have announced Valve have announced a Steam machine. It's basically a console stroke home computer stroke whatever, which basically runs their Linux. And I was listening to
What Linux?
other.
Which type? What? Where? What? Which one?
It's
You know
an
what?
immutable. It's Bazaar, isn't it? No,
No.
it's like a
Uh-uh.
Bazaar, but it's Arch
Bill?
basically. Arch. It's Arch
Ah, there it
with
is.
KDE, but isn't it immutable as well?
It is.
So you can't just randomly install stuff. And I remember listening to some like general podcasts on technology, like the Vergecast or Engadget and whatever, and they were saying about how, and this is them saying it, you know, Windows games play better on Proton and on Linux than they do on Windows.
Yeah.
Some of
And
them.
I have an answer for them all too, by the way. Is that Wine, Proton and Wine underneath don't run all the cruft that Windows runs in the background. So you end up with a cleaner slate, and all it's doing is emulating, not emulating, but emulating the parts of Windows that are required to actually run the game. It's slimmer.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so, it's can anybody believe that? If somebody had told you 10 years ago there'd be a mainstream console running Linux and that ran Windows games, it's like, whoa, man. Kudos to Valve, man. Kudos.
I think if you run servers, that's a pretty intuitive thing. I mean, I think people who run Linux servers versus people who have, well, especially people who have had to use Microsoft server products in the past and then are able to use Linux to do especially like mainstay things like file servers or some sort of like a NAS setup or something like that, where or even like a DNS server or like a core network type protocol, like something like that. The overhead of Linux is so much lower that you get to use more of the hardware, the power of the hardware. You're not taking, it's like installing Windows on a computer, where if you get a computer that has, 128 gigs of storage, and this isn't such a big deal now because it's usually bigger, but, and Windows is taking up 80 of it because it does, and you're like, well, okay, 128 isn't enough because Windows is eating up so much of it. And then you install Linux on that same system and it's taking up 10. It's every time you experience something like that, it solidifies this impression that Linux is the more lean, focused, purpose-built system that it's. And I think it's because the desktop aspect of it, and this is something that is actually pretty interesting. Windows, the kernel itself is obviously part of Windows, and then Windows is an ancillary to that. But, Linux is really about the kernel. Linux is the kernel, right? And then desktop Linux is an offshoot of that, right? And so, I mean, that's how I think of Linux, at least, is that, it's all about the kernel, and it's all about what you can do with that kernel, and then you add additional things on top of it.
It makes it impossible to explain to normal people.
I know. It's additive rather than Windows is so, monolithic in comparison. Yeah. Oh, we lost him.
He does that.
He got a note. He got a note, so
He got a note.
But yeah, I think my hang up with that is, mostly about the drivers. 10 years ago, we were in a really bad driver state. I mean,
that's true.
10 years ago, we didn't have AMD part of Mesa. We didn't have, even the Nuvo driver wasn't nearly as good as they are. And even NVIDIA is saying that they're going to work with the Nuvo driver, at least in some capacity. So, yeah, I think it was mostly the disbelief of, these companies that run proprietary drivers are never going to let those come over here to Linux or anything like that. They have partnerships with Windows. Why would they bother? And now they're bothering. And I think I mean, it's a small piece. Well, it's a piece of the Linux story as to why we are where we are. And I think companies like Valve are pushing that story. I think Valve is probably one of our biggest proponents. Why we are where we are. I mean, why Plasma is where it's at. I mean, not to say that Plasma wasn't getting better iteration after iteration, just that the Valve push with their interest and their money are pushing Plasma ahead faster than they would have any other time. So yeah, I think a lot of things had to come together to make this story a story. But man, I'm glad they did. And the Steam Deck is great, by the way. So
I mean,
the
I've got mine
Steam
here.
Machine. Yeah, the Steam Machine is just going to be even better. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't put any pricing out, but it's probably going to be in the same realm as PS5s and Xboxes, isn't it? It's not going to be.
I would imagine
massively-
around $500. Around, don't quote me here, but
Yeah.
the VR thing I think is going to be interesting because the Index, the previous one that they had that Valve had was priced at about $1,000. So do we think that's going to be the same? Is the VR one going to be about $1,000?
I mean, how much is the PSVR now? About
Well, I don't know.
500 again, I think.
Is it? So you think it'll be
I
another
don't know.
500?
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head now. That sounds about it. So I would expect to be in the same ballpark, and I think it sounds like it's going to be of this somewhere in between a PS5 and a PS5 Pro when it comes to its actual hardware chops. Yeah, it's because I mean even the PS5 is 5 years old now, which is interesting.
Is that real?
Yeah,
5?
it's been 5 years. Yeah, because people were
This
talking
ain't been-
about
nobody has
how
one.
there is a
I've got 2.
well, people have got them now.
Do you?
Yeah, people have got them now for a long time. But for
love
a long
consoles,
time, you're
man.
right. For
Yeah.
a long time, you couldn't get them. No, what was it?
That's been the Linux story for a long time, though. Is have yourself Linux on the desktop and just run your games on a console. If you didn't want to have to care, right? But now that's changing, which is great.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing that there was again some articles and whatever talking about how normally the next generation inverted commas of consoles, they're normally about 5 years apart, roughly 5-6 years, and there doesn't seem to be even a roadmap for a PlayStation 6.
Why would there? So I have beef with that because why would there need to be? The games look fine.
So that's exactly what this article was
I
saying.
have
Was kind of saying that.
anecdotally heard
Why is
that.
that the case? It's because the hardware is already good enough to get what you need that Sony or Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft's Xbox is just a dumpster fire. It sounds like.
I think they're going to make one more
but,
version of the
Sony.
Xbox,
Why would they need to?
and then they're going to work on just Xbox OS, and it's going to be third.
Yeah, I was going to say it's just going to be part of
Yeah.
Windows.
I think the days of the platforms making hardware and selling that as a loss leader is kind of coming to an end, sort of.
Sony's going to be the only one left, and I think Valve is okay. So my prediction is Valve is going to murder Xbox and take its place, and there will be so it won't be PlayStation versus Xbox being the literal exact same thing, just with this one has a Microsoft logo and this one has a Sony logo. It's going to be PS5 owning the entire console space, and then Valve being the other. That I think is going to be how it plays out. Nintendo is off in its own world. You don't really put Nintendo in because they're like two generations of hardware back. They don't really care. They have Pokemon. Why would they care?
But it's a different market, isn't it? The Switch and all of that. It's a completely different gamer demographic compared to the PS5. Just like PC gamers is often quite different gamer kind of demographic as well, and at the end of the day you will do what your base wants, and if your base wants something, that's what it will get. And if you're a Nintendo Switch user, most people, that's a different set of people, isn't it? So Nintendo
so what
that's
we're
why
gonna
Nintendo
have
have never been in the hardware game. They've never really been in the hardware game, have they?
Right. So what we'll have is an Apple Android situation. We'll have Sony being the Apple, and Valve and their Steam machine being the Android, where you can sideload stuff and install whatever you want, whatever. I heard Google was stepping back on that stance.
Yeah, they
possibly,
are
but I don't
stepping
wanna.
back apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
are
Of
stepping
course,
back
of course.
apparently.
The only thing that makes Android interesting, yeah, keep it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably telling that that news came after apparently Epic and Google have now, mended, their relations, as it were, and they've,
Yeah.
got to their own solution. So it's interesting. On a completely different note, question: any of you guys run Portainer?
Yes.
Take that as a no. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the reason I'm asking is that I had a bit of I'm not going to say exciting adventure. I had some stuff happen today. So I was remember I was talking about static IPs many episodes ago, Bill, and I thought I had one, and then it turned out that I didn't. And so I then figured out a couple of weeks ago how to
I knew you didn't.
use Network Manager and NetPlan. Well, no. So I used Network Manager and NetPlan, and I made up a conf file and all this YAML, and then put that in, and I thought everything was fine. Well, it seems that file didn't save, and again, my IP address is changed, and which is a pain because now I've got Jellyfin working and Image working and Audio Bookshelf working, and Portainer as well. Anyway, so
you didn't
I went
NetPlan apply. That was the problem.
I think that's exactly what the problem was because, it never saved it. It seems I don't know what I did wrong.
Oh.
I mean, as I said, noob here. So anyway, I wrote it out again and did it again, and then now it is static. And what was the other thing I did? I also realized that the guides that I were using old, Gateway 4 is deprecated. Use something else. So I learned a bit of that, did a bit of that, got Jellyfin working again, got Image working again, got Audio Bookshelf working again. Portainer was refusing to work. I could not understand why. It would log in, it would load up, but it wouldn't connect to the local environment, which was the server. And I tried all sorts of things. I uninstalled Portainer, I redid the whole Docker composed, all of that sort of stuff, and it still wasn't working. And then I thought, okay, let me actually just search. And for once, it's not my fault. It seems to be a bug. It's actually on GitHub. People are having the same problem. I don't know what the answer is, but it did make me feel a little bit better to myself that for a change, it's not because I messed
making the
up.
same mistake.
Yeah.
Well,
the answer is
could
wait for the next version.
Yeah.
And when you upgrade, it'll work.
So is it still not working?
So as I said, no. It will log in, but it won't find the local environment.
I just
So,
didn't
let me
find
ask you
it
this.
as
Did-
useful as I wanted to. So I've got it running on one
Are you
machine,
running
but-
Are you running Portainer from a container, like from
Yeah.
Docker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a way in Docker. I suppose you're probably using Docker Compose. You probably have
Yeah.
it set to Portainer latest when whatever it is that you're pulling.
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
Go back in and choose one of the longer term support branches or whatever. It'll roll you back and it'll probably work.
Yeah, I've had to do that with Nextcloud.
Yeah.
I don't know how many
do
times.
a Docker Compose pull. Yeah. So in your configuration file, go back and so you'll have in Docker Hub you can go and you can actually see all the ones that they publish.
They're
or
called
whatever, and
tags.
they're usually ones that like. Yeah, so one of them is going to be tagged like a specific version number. Just pick one of the latest ones, not necessarily the latest one. And then in your configuration file, change latest to whichever tag you choose. And then do a Docker pull or Docker Compose pull. And then Docker Compose update.
I wish they used more of a
probably
dynamic
be
on
fine.
that was like, I don't know, LTS or stable, like a stable or a beta branch or something like that. Because you don't really have an idea.
Well-
It'd be nice to know where can I just stick with, and then the next time the stable comes out, I'll just go with that. With Docker, you can
When you
nail it on a version number or put it on latest.
Yeah.
most of the time there's no other
Actually,
option.
it's on LTS.
So
It's actually on
then
Portainer.
same idea, but maybe get on a more faster moving branch and then see if see
Okay,
if that actually
do the
helps.
other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know,
Check
if
the type.
nothing changes or whatever, then revert those changes. Go back to LTS and just wait. You'll be fine. This is kind of the beauty of the container thing, but Bill is describing the not so beauty of the container thing, because when you give developers all of the choice of how they want to actually push out their application or whatever, do you want to maintain 15 different branches? If they decide yes, and that's just how it is, right? So there's no stable branch. There's whatever the developers say, and every developer is going to be
Right.
different.
Yeah.
So you have to keep up with every single developer of every single container that you're doing, and you want to be on whatever branch of this or that or whatever. And then, you know, with Docker Compose, you always have this situation where, you know, a developer wants 4 different containers and they want 4 specific different containers. So you have to be careful with the main developer, say Portainer, say they pull in like a database and other things or whatever. You have to actually pay attention to what Portainer is putting for their requirement for a database, because when they make that change, you better make that change. Because if you don't make that change, then your database is going to explode, and you're going to wonder why nothing is working, and then it's going to take you 6 hours to figure out, oh, Portainer changed it from 3.1 to 3.2 on the database. Oh.
And that the
so it
databases
wasn't
are
you
the
at
ones
all.
that worry me the most, because they move
Yeah.
so fast all the time. And most of the time it's not a problem, but you can really get into a lot of trouble writing the Lightning with MariaDB or MySQL or Postgres, just because of how much they change that. And if you got like WordPress or Nextcloud depending on that as a container, you know, you could. I've not seen a lot of problems, and I see a lot of updating going on, and it just kind of worries me. It's been working fine for a couple years, but it just feels like something delicate. And to the developer's credit, you know, normally it just works fine. Surprisingly, it's the
What do you guys? How do you monitor your Docker containers then? Do you just do it through the command line then?
it opens. I've got
Or
it
have you got
set
any
in
other
the
kind
MOTD of Ubuntu server, where it brings up all that stuff.
What?
When you SSH in, I added it to that, the Docker PS. So every time I SSH into my servers,
Oh.
it just brings a Docker PS up and shows me. And then I make sure not all containers have the health status enabled. So if I can, I try to enable that manually, just so I can see that it's a healthy container. And then
No, you got to play with awk and stuff, right? So you can just like pull that out and just have the name of your container and health status, just those 2 columns right there, and you'll
you
know.
can do a little bit of magic with Docker PS. There's a tack to add to the Docker PS command where you can specify the columns. And I've not played with it a lot, but I did try it one time. I tried it, but then I didn't like put it in the action, because I want to see all the things when I SSH in, because it's usually, unless there's a problem, it's only once a week, and then, you know, I see it, and then
Is there many other alternatives to Portainer then? I'm trying to think. No, because it was just the first, as I've said, and this is my first time getting into the whole containerized and Docker.
you know, I don't know, because I just
So,
I didn't find it as useful as I was wanting. Well, what I want is automations, and Portainer is just basically a way to put things in front of your face in a way that's easily click and manage, you know. And I learned Docker on the command line, and I'm more comfortable with the commands that manage Docker, and I know how to get at all the information I needed there. What I needed was automation to keep it up to date and keep it clean, because keeping it up to date is one thing, but if you're not cleaning it, you will very quickly, very easily save up a collection of images and volumes that can easily get up to several gigabytes in size in a matter of a month. If you're because these Docker containers, you know, they're sizable, and the images are sizable.
Yeah.
And if you're not pruning them, as they say, Docker prune, they will they will accumulate. And
How often do you have to prune these then?
I prune once.
Depends on how often you update.
Yeah, like once a week. If I got Watchtower running, it's either WordPress, because I've got I don't know, like 10 WordPress instances between the 3 machines. And that's the one that gets updated a lot. MariaDB gets updated a lot. Once a week, I'll run both the Docker system prune and Docker image prune and Docker volume prune commands. And
How often do you update these containers?
they update automatically through Watchtower. Now, I know the opinions abound about that.
Okay.
But if I had...
That's dangerous, yeah.
It is, but I've only ever had a problem with Collabora with that. And the problems with Collabora and its relationship with Nextcloud are more to do with just the malignment of development between those two things. And I should be using the all-in-one Docker image anyway, but this bare metal install that I've been nursing for 3 years it's worked, so I've just kind of left it running. The all-in-one container image is actually pretty good. It answers a lot of the problems that people normally have.
Yeah, that is the Docker story.
It is.
That's why Docker is interesting, because you don't have to care.
You don't. And
you don't even have to care what your base operating system is,
This problem we've been having with, there's a few people on Nextcloud that don't like Nextcloud Office, the Collabora, LibreOffice version of the word processor and whatnot. Well, with the all-in-one container, it's literally just take the checkbox off of this line and put it on this other line to switch between the Nextcloud Office and the only Office. And you restart the containers, and it does, because it pulls all this stuff as containers within its own environment, it works beautifully together. And you won't have this problem with Watchtower updating something that is not well in line with the rest of the system, because it's all being managed. These containers come from its own repository that's not being managed by Watchtower or whatnot. So you'll have the interface for Nextcloud, and then you'll have a separate interface for the Nextcloud all-in-one container from the administrator panel, and that's where you would manage all of the other containers that are pulled in. And then there's quite a few that the all-in-one pulls in to run, because it Dockerizes pretty much all of the little systems that you would normally just install as an add-on to Nextcloud. Mm-hmm. The all-in-one puts a lot of the main ones into its own container and manages it that way. And it seems to be a lot better way of managing it, especially with updating, because updating the bare metal version is more of a process of interacting directly with the PHP, with PHP commands that were written for Nextcloud. With the Docker thing, with the officially supported all-in-one container, it's all handled through that interface, and it just works. And it works really well. The documentation is really good too, because they lay out exactly how to configure your reverse proxy, and they've got all of the different reverse proxy methods listed out. And in my case, I use the Nginx proxy manager, and it shows you graphically how to set up each one of these windows to make it work just right. It's fantastic. I've got 2 of them running for other stuff. I'm going to be switching Nextcloud as soon as I get a day off that I can sit down here and actually... I don't think it'll take much time to get it switched over, but, I don't want to take the chance of it. So I want to have time to be able to sit and make sure that it's up and running. But eventually that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll never have to manage a bare metal Nextcloud again. that was an interesting.
nice.
Yeah, at the time I think that was when I went to begin the process of investigating how to get Nextcloud up and running. That's the direction I was led, was to the bare metal install, and I start watching the videos, and that guy that does oh gosh, I can't remember his name. He does those instructional videos and he wrote the book for Ubuntu server. I bought one. He had a really good book right here. He had a really good instructional video on how to set up. Jay LaCroix. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. He broke
right.
mastering Ubuntu server. He did a video on setting up step
Oh my
by step.
God, is that a book?
Oh yeah.
Well,
I was so
in size of that.
I was so happy with how well his video helped me get that up and running, and he had a link on there to go ahead and just go buy it. It was $39, I think. So I went and bought one just to support him and because everybody needs money, right? But that was at the time. I think that was the officially supported method to get Nextcloud up and running. But now it seems as though they've shifted to the Docker version or the Docker method.
Yeah.
And when you're learning Docker runs. I mean these Portainer and things like that were stuff that came along afterwards, and they're kind of a bolted on sort of technology, something that you've got to add to Docker in order to use it. And I've always felt like if you're going to learn this thing, learn it properly. Learn if something's not working right, learn exactly where to go and look without the use of a third-party tool to of course, I guess you could argue.
I mean, that was my
as a third-party
yeah. I mean,
tool.
that was But I mean, that was my whole thing with when I was using Open Media Vault, isn't it? That it was just easier to do things after. It seemed initially easier, but then when you actually if you want trying to get guides on how to do X, Y, and Z, you then realize that actually having
all the documentation is just written for just bare bones. Debian, that's the thing that irritated me about Open Media Vault, because I do like Open Media Vault, but you shouldn't go messing with how things work on the bottom end of it. If you're going to write some sort of user interface to sit.
Bill, we had this conversation. That's why your Mint was messed up.
Yeah,
you messed with it. Don't do that.
I can't think of what it was, because most of the time I come home from the road and I fire this thing up and I run the updates. So it had to be an update, right? I run the updates and then I get on and open up Discord, and that particular time it just went ape shit. And when it comes to these flat packs, as far as I know, there's not a mechanism to roll back a flat pack that I'm aware of. So I was kind of just stuck with it. And if you try with the Deb, you can't roll back Discord, because Discord won't work unless you're up to date. It'll tell you. So I don't know. I guess I'll never know what that was. I think, but like Eric said, though, it was some kind of system call that overflowed the buffer or whatever. I don't know what it could have been.
You can pin, so you can pin an app in Flatpak, and actually, if you're using a Flatpak management UI, like, it'll usually help you do that. But you can also just use Flatpak pin, and then pick a specific version of something. So it depends on the platform, and then do they keep things available. I've actually had to do that because a new version of something I was using freaked out and went crazy, and the developers knew and they were fixing it, but in the meantime I had to roll it back and pin it.
I guess I just assumed that Discord wouldn't let you do that, because I know I've tried to open Discord when there was an update available.
No, usually services, they usually won't let you do that. You're right. It's going to be something that's less sort of needs that connection and is just checking constantly to make sure it's up to date. And
like Audacity.
No. Actually, you know what? Audacity, I know you were saying earlier that you'd had some issues in the past with time stretching and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of that stuff being corrected over time because I just watched the video of the the software lead on that, the project manager, and I forget his name. He's a pretty well-known person. Anyway,
Cool is his like handle.
yeah, yeah. But he went through the whole history of what they've done, what they are doing, why it was so difficult to make even the simplest changes to Audacity. It's a fascinating video. I mean, if you don't understand technical debt.
But then when you go to make a show and everybody is running something different, you got Moss on Bodhi running some Debian version of Audacity. There's probably even one major release number back from the updated version, and some other people might be running, because that's the other thing on Mint. The Flatpak is like the best way to get the up-to-date version with a whole bunch of extra plugins and everything on there, and it works great. Yeah. But it's one of those unverified Flatpaks, dun dun dun, and you got to go into the settings and enable unverified Flatpaks to get the Audacity Flatpak. So you gotta be a cowboy to go and do that. I don't know, with Audacity a lot. I don't even know if Mint, I guess I could look it up, but the repo version of Audacity might be still several iterations behind. I don't know.
Oh, it is. I mean, you're living on 2404, so I mean, whatever version it is at least a year old, at least, because they freeze that well before April.
And this stuff is like a snapshot in time, obviously. And if you have a version of something, to be able to lock it to where, I mean, unless there's some sort of security risk, which there really isn't with something like Audacity. No. So, I mean, I agree with that. And they are making some pretty substantial changes. But there are also some pretty difficult things for them to fix. Again, I know I just said it, but if you haven't watched that video, maybe I don't know, find a way to put it out there. But it's fascinating to just understand how Audacity, from the UI toolkit they used, that like sort of how difficult it was to add any kind of new features, and then the real-time effects and the things that they're trying to do to modernize it as a DAW, more as a DAW than just as a simple tool, but still maintain the usability and simplicity. And yeah, it's he talks about the toolbar and like having 6 different modes and what those modes did, and like 3 of them did nothing useful or meaningful or didn't do what you think they would do. And yeah, and just how fundamentally not broken, but just you could only do certain things a certain way in Audacity. And I think if you've ever tried to edit a full multi-layered tracked Audacity project, especially prior to the real-time effect, it was very challenging, because it was destructive editing, and if you got several layers deep, then you realized, oh shit, I didn't want to do that, and now I have to like hope that I have enough undos to get back to where I was 17 changes ago or whatever, and then redo.
My solution to that was like saving a separate file every 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, extraordinary, things, whatever. But
when I'd mix them together too, I would make a new timeline or a new waveform every single time. That way, if I screwed something up, which was a lot, I could just nuke that and start over again.
Isn't it funny how we learn to adapt to stuff like that, where it's like, software doesn't need to be perfect. You just have to understand in what ways it's fragile.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
listen, this is what we call workflow. Don't bust people's bubble over here, man. It's
I think it's because we understand that computers is a thing that fundamentally is broken. It barely works, these things. We've learned to adjust workflows to go around the little inconsistencies. And
but you have the
I
alchemy
think that's an
of
interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's an
you have
interesting
the
way of putting
alchemy
it.
of the machine itself, right? Like in your case, who knows what hardware thing was happening to bomb out like that. So on your machine that was happening, but how the hell as a developer do you address that? Because it probably wasn't something you could easily recreate. And then so beyond the machine level, then you've got the operating system level. I mean, it's kind of amazing that software works as well as it does. Um,
Yeah.
Honestly, considering all of the things, and especially Linux, because Linux is always coming at this as the second choice, right? This machine wasn't built with Linux, and in very few cases. I mean, it's more prevalent today than it's ever been. But the idea that you got a system that came with Linux is usually not the case, and so Linux is coming at this from, okay, how do we support hardware that the manufacturers couldn't care less that it worked on Linux, and that was, like we talked about 10 years ago, that was a much bigger challenge. I think today it seems like hardware standards seem to be a little more open. I mean, I know it still happens that you can get a machine with a Wi-Fi card that doesn't work on Linux, or isn't well supported, but it seems to be less the case now than it used to be. Maybe that's my own like sheltered privilege of like having the right kinds of
No,
machines.
it's absolutely
But it's
the
like
case.
but it's that same thing. But it's that same thing we were saying at the beginning of the show, isn't it? That we've got software that has to work on so many different types of devices with different hardware configurations. No wonder there's randomness. Do you know what I mean? That happens.
Oh yeah.
And
Because
problems
developers
and
cannot.
whatever it might be.
It's a fool's idea that developers can make a piece of software that is going to give the exact same experience on every type of machine. Because even a company like Canonical can afford a lot of different machines to test their software on. They still cannot get every one of them. There's always going to be some kind of vagary.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, so Randy's Garage, I don't know if you've ever seen that channel. It's one of the original Windows developers, and he's done so much work on Windows in its infancy in like the early days, and how much of it still exists today. Like he was just did a video about the task manager and how he wrote it, he came up with it, and had to do all this extra work to make it so that he could resize it without it flickering, and like all the custom classes and all this stuff he had to do. And the fact that that same 85K executable that he wrote for Windows 95 or NT or whatever it was will still run today on Windows 11, which just tells you how backward compatible Windows still is. And that's kind of a minor miracle. So you can hate Windows and Microsoft for a lot of different reasons, but if you are somebody who needs to run software and know that it's going to work, I mean, that's part of the reason that Windows and Microsoft is so successful, is because of that backwards compatibility. But the idea that he wrote something 30 years ago and it is still a core part of that system, and you think, okay, this was just a guy. He's just a developer. He had an idea. He came from a Unix background. He wanted a better way to see all the processes and interact with the system from an administrative aspect. And so he just scratched his own itch, wrote this task manager. The team saw it. They wanted to put it into the product. And now it's still there. And I mean, so many of the pieces of software we use are built like that, where it's somebody had an idea, they implemented it, it got as far as it got before they had to move on to something else. And yeah, software is just this continuously evolving, especially if it's a long-lived project. Like, and then the idea of technical debt, and how do you expand into new technologies or new areas of hardware? Or I mean, it's kind of fascinating that even people who understand how it works, it's still opaque enough that and difficult enough to troubleshoot. Like, that's part of the frustration I have sometimes, is my wife or somebody who doesn't know anything about technology looks at me and says, well, what do you mean you can't fix it? Where it's like, well, I have to reinstall something. Well, can't you just fix it? And it's like, no. And well, why not? And it's like, well, I don't really know what's happening with it.
The
I know you
best
look at
thing
me like,
somebody
I
can learn
understand.
to do is learn how to arrange your storage to where it is separate from the operating system, and then learn how to nuke and pave quickly enough. because you are inevitably going to run into problems. That is just
Well, how many of you would just automatically reinstall Windows once a year because you just knew it was going to be terrible if you didn't do that?
maybe not once a year,
just
but
saying,
every
Bill
couple years.
just-
Yeah.
Bill just described immutable operating systems. Just
Yeah.
so we know.
Oh.
Well, and I was just thinking
Yeah.
if Bill had been running an immutable
certainly
system,
didn't mean
would that
to.
have happened to him? Well, would it have happened to you in the first place with this issue with Discord?
It's
mean,
arguable.
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, of course,
And I mean, what I think the most important thing about that though is that like we keep describing this scenario where the developer and people down the chain can't figure out because everything is so different. There's no way they could ever possibly know. There's no way they could ever possibly. Well, this is a way. Doing these composable or immutable distributions is very much a way to standardize almost everything on the operating system. And when something breaks, there's a through line to that where we can say that it probably wasn't this, so we'll have to move on pretty quickly to troubleshooting something else and making changes elsewhere on the operating system. So, I mean, one of the benefits of that is that every time you update, you are nuking and paving.
Yeah,
there
in
could
a way.
still be hardware issues. I mean, obviously with a
Sure.
kernel composable stuff, but the likelihood is
But it's
gonna be-
consistent.
yeah, exactly. You should be able to reproduce it anywhere. Exactly.
I'm just not. I can't. It's blowing my mind because I cannot think of. Well, I can't think of an argument to that because you're almost certainly right. In this case,
Don't even try. It's
no.
a good
I
one.
mean, because it was really only Discord that was doing it, but you can't really blame it on Discord. It doesn't make sense to blame it on Discord because I do the nuke and pave and then the problem is solved. So it had to be something
Yeah.
that had been changed by something, and
It was likely Discord because it was reaching down to your hardware.
Yeah.
And then something happened either with the connection to the hardware or waking the hardware up or whatever.
right.
That then cascaded into this weird, it broke your monitor situation.
Well, on that note, I think we should probably wrap it up. Let us know what you think. Drop us a line. Show at linuxotc.org. We check out about once every 6 months or so.
Give or take.
Let us know what you think. We're also on Discord. We're using it right now. It works great.
And I'm back on Mastodon.
Oh, I never knew you left. That's why I was like, oh crap!
There you go.
I must not have had his
You
old
were
mess.
You were such a prolific poster.
Yeah, we do have a Mastodon. Go to hit us up on there if you like. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, I'm Bill.
I'm Majid.
And I'm Leo. I see people's lips moving, but I don't hear anything. But
Yeah, I didn't hear anything out of Eric. See you next time, folks.
I saw him lip it.
Yeah, I saw your lips move, Eric, but nothing happened. See you guys.
Okay. I'm lighting up green, so
Anybody in the live stream? If
Yeah,
you-
no, it did.